Thank you. Uh-oh. Well, look, thanks for coming to the session right after lunch, first full day of IDA. You noticed what I put up there. I said, welcome sales pros. So I want to get started by finding out how many in the room consider themselves sales pros. See, I'm pointing you out so I can move you to the left side of the room. If you ask me any questions, I'll say, I haven't been able to see that side of the room over there. Good, we got a sales pro there. Where else? Sales pros? Listen, I think we're all sales pros. No matter what part of the sales cycle we've been in, no matter how long we've been in sales, at the end of the day, nothing happens until something is sold. So, let's get started here. Emotions sell doors and accessories. Don't get caught up in logic. But as we get involved in this, first off, I just want to, let's see if we've already got our first technical. It's not moving. The slide. There we go. All right. So the only reason I put this slide up here right now, first off, it dates me. All right, so I was a little bit concerned if I should throw 1980 up there because everybody could start doing the math and counting backwards. But I think what I really wanted to convey here is this has been my gig all the way since high school through college. Everything that I've done has been involved in some form of sales and marketing for a number of different companies. And at the end of the day, even though I've done this for my entire career and I haven't dabbled in it and I haven't stepped out of it when the industry got a little tough and then came back into it again when the industry started to get better, as so many times we see things like that happen. We can all ride the wave of a great economy when there's so much money, there's so much activity going on that just about anybody that goes out there and hangs a magnetic sign on the side of a Ford F-150 and puts a ladder on their truck and buys some tools can basically say that they're in sales. But when the economy plummets and business gets tough, that's where you start to see things weeded out. So the reason that I have this up here is to say that I've been through the good times, I've ridden the waves, and I've also been down at the bottom with many of you in this room. And what we want to talk about today, with assistance from a couple of my Miller Edge colleagues, Miss Julie Miller. Julie's up at the table. Oh, she snuck up there. I thought she was going to sit over there. And then we've got David Makepeace, my diversified market specialist. They're going to be assisting a little bit later on to try to tie what I've been talking about up here for an hour into somewhat of a role play that we can all somewhat identify with. So our agenda today. Boy, I'll tell you what, this topic could be a 3-day session. I'm going to try to condense this down into, at the end of the day, less than an hour to give us just a general idea of what I mean by using emotions with logic, with emotions, and help you identify that when you're in front of a client, a customer, or you're assisting your sales team, owner of the company, whatever position you actually hold, whatever title, you should be able to start to recognize buying signals and when to switch from one mode into the other, and at the end of the day, increase your revenues. Because that's why we're all here. No matter what position we're in, once again, nothing happens until somebody sells something. If I can give you and show you a way to increase your average order size, firm up your bottom line, instead of selling so much more at the same margins or less, if I could show you how to sell the same amount, a little bit more, increase your margins because you're tying the emotional side of the business into it, I think that's a win for all of us. So, what we're going to get started with right here as we go through is a little group warm-up exercise. Since we're all salespeople in one form or another, and this is an interactive session, the first thing that I would like to do is, at the front of the room up here where nobody is, I've got some plastic cups. Now, the cup could really be anything. It could signify a pen, it could signify the backpack right here, your binder, a magazine, it doesn't really matter. But here's what I would like you to do, and this is going to be quick. I'm going to have my colleagues up here walking around a little bit and listening and observing. But what I'd like you to do, and some of you that maybe aren't near somebody close by, you might have to come a little bit closer just for this little part of the exercise. But what I would like you to do is think about who would like to be the buyer, who would like to be the seller. And then what I want you to do is the seller, take no more than a minute to 2 minutes. This is going to move quickly. And I want you to list out the reasons why your customer should buy that plastic cup. And then we're going to let the room get a little loud right here, and you're going to practice your skills with your customer, whether you're the salesperson, whether you're the customer, to just see how that little exercise goes. So, should I lock the doors so nobody tries to bolt out on me? I'm going to stand back here because I understand that sometimes when you ask for audience participation, all of a sudden it's like, geez, my phone, I got to take this call right now. All right, so I'm going to stand back here so nobody leaves. This is going to be a fun exercise. All right, so any questions? No questions. Super. All right, so get together. Somebody decide who's the customer, who's the seller. Take a minute to decide how you're going to sell that plastic cup. And then I'm going to stop you and I'm going to say, okay, go sell that cup. Yeah, you take that one. Okay, good. What? It's working now. It must, I think when they... Perfect. Okay, 30 seconds. Okay, time. Boy, I'll tell you, I hope there's a lot of cup selling going on right now. Because I was a little worried, first off. I mean, you guys really did great if you're actually truly selling the cup. Okay. Come on up, David. Julie. Super, super. You guys did an awesome job. Really, really nice. Really nice. You're a proud owner of a cup. All right, that's what we wanted to hear. Okay, guys, let's pull it back around right now. All right, so let's talk a little bit about possibly what Julie observed, what David observed, what I observed, and let's see if there's two different schools of thought or two different camps as far as on selling this plastic cup. David, what did you see?
Yeah, I had a lot of good things. I heard definitely price coming up a lot. We're talking about the cost, versus different types of cups. I heard, what colors can I get this in? What features does it have? What can I use it for? When can I get it? So definitely focusing on a lot of specific kind of features and what the cup can do for that person.
Great, great. Expected no less. Wonderful, wonderful job. Julie, how about you?
I heard a lot about the technical things about the tub, like the quality of it, and some people were talking about heads and how it's super adjustable. So a lot of technical stuff. Someone said environmental friendly. So
Very cool. Okay. That's, for the most part, what I heard. And I'm not saying that there's another side of this that we just didn't get a chance to overhear as we were walking around with this quick little exercise. But I think the majority of us in this room would probably feel more comfortable and would err on the side of features and benefits, the technical specifications of our product, all of the things that we need to know intimately to really be able to communicate in this industry correctly and at the right level, especially when you come to an event like this, or you go to DASMA or any of the large industry events. I got to tell you, I've been in this industry just coming up on 3 years, and you can see I kind of jump into different industries. So my learning curve early on is always I have to immerse myself in it right away to have any sort of credibility. But I got to tell you, when it comes to the really specific mechanics and what makes things tick, I rely on my sales team. I know what I'm good at, and then I hand it off so I don't get myself caught up in trying to be everything to everybody. So that's great. So now let's take a look at a couple of clips that I put together here from YouTube and try to bring this even closer together on what is a technical sale, what is an emotional sale, how do we marry the two together. And I don't know, maybe it doesn't even work in our industry. Maybe our industry is so different that what I'm prognosticating and preaching up here, you may say at the end of the event, hey, you should go back into selling sewer and drain cleaning equipment, Keith, or MRO supplies or Hilti tools, because you just don't get it. I don't think I'm going to hear that, but I'm completely open that if I'm completely off base, I know this group will let me know. All right, so let's get started right here. The first thing we're going to take a look at right here is an advertisement, a commercial by a little company you may have heard of, Dyson.
Other handheld vacuums rely on traditional motors, whereas a Dyson handheld is powered by the Dyson digital motor. It uses neodymium magnets to spin up to 5 times faster than a Formula One engine. It's why Dyson handhelds can deliver twice the suction power of others in use.
Wow, interesting, huh? Anybody own a Dyson in the room? How many? Let's see your hands. So, 10 years ago, anybody own a Dyson then when they just started to hit the market? Early adopter? You ever look back? New one's better? Technology has gotten better? I own a couple of them. I have 3 dogs at home, and I'll tell you what that sucks out of the carpet even after 2 days, I can't imagine. I'm surprised that there's still nap left on the carpeting. It's so crazy. I don't know how they do it. But that was one way to market. So now let's take a look at the different side of the fence. I think everybody's heard of Nike in here before.
Conscious of the fact that he's still to score on the biggest stage and Wayne himself. He needs to make a difference. The question is, can Neymar live up to the number 10 legend?
fantastic. Anybody ever hear of these guys up here that they were just showing on the screen? Anybody know who they are? Uh-huh. Number one soccer players in the world right now? Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Did they mention anything about Nike apparel, Nike footwear, the comfort of the shoes, the wicking properties of the jerseys? Didn't see any of that, right? Interesting. Dyson, did they make you feel good about any touchy-feely stuff going on with Dyson? Good, good. So, let's take a look right here. Dyson, twice the suction. This is the way they go to market. This is the way they have always gone to market. No emotions are required. It works for them. They're not trying to make you necessarily feel good about purchasing a Dyson. They feel that with the logical approach and details about the product, that that's all they need to lead into this very expensive purchase that continues to lead the market in the price point. Everybody else tries to compete against it by saying, well, hey, now we've got bagless vacuum cleaners. Look at the Hoover. And they try to make it look in such a way. They don't even go back and try to really address that at this point in time, because the market and the knowledge and the technical specifications of what Dyson has done leads moving forward. So the logical reasons to purchase prevail. If you see them to start to bring emotions into the sale, you probably should think to yourself that somewhere in the high levels of this organization, something is changing in the marketplace if they now need to change their story to appeal to the emotional side of the buyer. In that very short clip that you saw, exactly, practical demonstrations and scientific explanations persuade us to buy. And it works for them. So now let's talk a little bit about the Nike Risk Everything campaign. Image and emulation are the primary drivers. All the way back from I Want to Be Like Mike, Michael Jordan shoes and so forth. Once again, think about it. Did they ever really get into the features and benefits of their product as much as emulating that, yes, you too, if you put a pair of Air Jordans on, you can be like Mike. You know in your heart you couldn't be like Mike. You look at me, I'm 5'7", maybe, if I've got a good heel on. I could never be like Mike. But if you put a pair of those shoes on, you somehow feel like you're part of it. It's an all-emotional message with a desire for emulation. They're hugely successful at doing this. So are other companies out there that are selling this type of product. Sport role models and the desire for emulation are powerful motivators to sell and for us to buy products. And it works. They're not going to change their model. That's why they spend millions and millions of dollars on getting athletes that live up to the standard that Nike purveys. And if they have somebody that becomes a fallen star, can anybody think of anyone there that Nike backed that all of a sudden became a fallen star and how quickly that contract ended? Tiger Woods, right? He fell from grace just like that, from Essentia, all of these different companies that were looking at, I can be like Tiger. Even if I'm not a golfer, even though I'm selling software, somehow I'm going to make the connection that I could be like Tiger because I see his picture, and that's what it's all about. So the lack of emphasis on technical specs suggests a highly competitive market. As we go through this, what we're going to try to tie together here is, in this room, we're all selling stuff. And the stuff that we sell, for better or worse, depending on who has a bigger advertising budget, a bigger marketing budget, who is connected more with all of the different levels of who we sell to, at the end of the day, all of our stuff works, and it all works pretty well. Because if it didn't, we would find someone else to buy it from, or that manufacturer wouldn't be around. So at the end of the day, the great equalizer, no matter what bells and whistles and new product spin we could put on it, at the end of the day, you've got to tie something deeper into this than just the product itself. So we want to move into right now something that's called the logic sandwich. Man, I'll tell you what, it's a good thing I didn't have this presentation right before lunch, because this would have you all drooling. I don't know how many calories is in that, and cholesterol and fat, but boy, it doesn't look half bad, does it? So if you think about the logic sandwich, I want us to leave here learning to love the logic sandwich. However you think about it, I just want you to think about that logic needs to be sandwiched between two slices of emotion. And if we can leave the room today with that idea in our head, that 3 simple step, that sandwich with logic in the center, instead of logic always leading and trying to sell logically on technical specifications, product knowledge, features and benefits, you will see that you could pull people through the sales cycle instead of them leaving your location to move on to the next installer or manufacturer or distributor that once again is selling pretty good stuff. So what does this look like? Emotion. The first thing that you've got to do is you've got to get somebody's attention. There was a movie a number of years back, all-star cast, Alec Baldwin, Al Pacino. God, it was all, and right now the name of the movie, somebody here probably remembers. They were selling land, selling sits. Ed Harris. Anybody remember? There was a movie, it was truly a sales. It was a dark film noir type of a thing. Everybody's going to start Googling, right, to find out what that was. But one of the things, it was old school selling. It was always be selling. Alec Baldwin was the sales manager that came from downtown for Mitch and Murray. And at Mitch and Murray, he was the heavy. He came in driving the big BMW 8 Series. He had the Rolex watch on. He came in a 3-piece suit. He just exuded success and money. And I'll think of the name of that by the time we finish because it's really a great sales movie. His thing was AIDA. You've always, first off, always attention, interest, desire, and action. You've got to get the interest first. You've got to get the desire going. So in an emotion, to get the most attention quickly, you need to get an emotional reaction. And that could even be a negative reaction. It does not always have to be all peaches and cream and everything has to be wonderful. And later on, as we move through this, I'm going to show you a picture of something that I'm going to be interested to see how it resonates with those of you in the room as a way to go to market to generate interest. But negative reaction, positive reaction, you're starting the first layer of that sandwich and you're getting something to happen. When you get into the logic side, this is where everything that you guys are complete experts on, the benefits, the features, the technical specification, is it normally open, is it normally closed, what temperature range does it operate in optimally, photo eyes, is it a high index, is it a reflective, all of this stuff that we deal with in our industry. You know what, a lot of times when you're talking to a customer, you get that my eyes glaze over effect. Have you ever been talking to a customer and you notice you're going into all of this really good stuff that you've been trained on, this is how you sell, and you're looking at the customer and they're like, hello, they're there, but their eyes are glazing over. You've got to be able to pull them back. But you're going to find out that everybody has the logical side. They need to know that information. Proof is essential. This is where they're asking you reasonable questions. This is where you need to know your stuff, or you need to know where to find it and refer back to it. But then the emotional side will kick back in. And if you don't know that they've just shifted themselves from the logical side of the business and, geez, what color does that come in? And, you know, the wood grain on there, can I get that to match the wood grain finish on my front door? What's the R factor of that door? Is it insulated? Is it non-insulated? If you're dealing with the operator, you know, does this meet the UL 325 standards? Is it jack shaft? All of those types of questions are on the logical side of the fence. But when the emotion kicks back in, this is a time for relief and excitement. If you have helped move that customer or client to a point where they can now feel good about their purchase or that they've made a good choice, you need to understand and validate that. That's the sandwich. If you just continue to ramble on with product information and they've already moved to the next step, this is where you start to find, geez, I thought I had that customer. I had them all the way through the presentation. I took them over to see my door displays. They touched it, they felt it. I could taste the sale. And then somewhere it disappears. And you're like, I don't know what happened. And as we all know, once a client or a potential client leaves and goes on to somebody else, it's extremely difficult to re-engage them and bring them back in without starting to say, hey, come and see me after you get your best price. I'm going to beat it. All of those things that really an intelligent buyer sniffs out and knows immediately, well, look, if you have a really good price for me, why did you let me leave? Why am I going to come back and give you a better price that somebody else worked so hard to give me just so I could buy yours? So these are the steps that we need to be involved in. So I want to show you something right here. Let's bring this back around to how it makes us feel, and not so much about selling doors and accessories. So I'm going to go through this. There's a lot of reading up here, but to my darling husband, before you return from your business trip, I just want to let you know about a small accident I had with the pickup truck when I turned into the driveway today. Fortunately, it was not too bad, and I really didn't get hurt, so please don't worry too much about me. I was coming home from Walmart, and when I turned into the driveway, I accidentally pushed down on the accelerator instead of the brake. It can happen. The garage door is slightly bent, but the pickup fortunately came to a halt when it bumped into your car. I'm really sorry, but I know with your kind-hearted personality, you will forgive me. You know how much I love you and care for you, my sweetheart. I am enclosing a picture for you. I cannot wait to hold you in my arms again, your loving wife. All right, so he's going through his phone, then he gets the attachment, okay? So I could see that happening. Maybe not to that extent, but it's kind of hard right now to feel angry at your wife until you see that. So for those of us in this room in different roles and different positions, whether you're the male or the female, the husband, the wife, did you get a little bit of a sense of, like, you put yourself in that position of what that would be like? You're getting this nice note, and it's like, it can't be that, but she just bumped my car a little bit. So then, the one thing that I didn't tell you right now yet, and finally, the real kicker and the emotional message that was the second email that came through after he saw the picture. Your girlfriend called. So, is this logic or is this emotion? When you get that little kicker, right? It depends on where you're sitting. It depends on where you're at. But just think of how this scenario right now worked inside each of you, reading this for the first time. It's a fun little exercise, but that's what you need to instill in your customer to sell products and to sell them profitably and to keep the customer on your side of the table before they move on. So now I'm going to show you another clip. I told you when I started that the Dyson clip and the Nike clip were two extremes. One was all technical, the other was all emulation and emotion. I don't know if any of you have seen this before. It's a pretty unique commercial with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Volvo trucks. So, David, if you'd cue that up for us.
I've had my ups and downs, my fair share of bumpy roads and heavy winds. That's what made me what I am today. Now I stand here before you. What you see is a body crafted to perfection. A pair of legs engineered to defy the laws of physics. And a mindset to master the most epic of splits.
What do you think? Was that cool? Was that amazing? Can you see how it married these both together right now with the logic? I mean, you're looking at a couple semis, right? You don't know for sure if they're going backwards or forwards. You can't really tell. You don't know if it's a static situation. And the whole thing, as we get into this, you'll see there were 77 million views on YouTube for this. This was amazing. And if you Google the epic split with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Volvo, you'll see there's a whole litany of actually how this was made, how they first told Jean-Claude. They actually are sitting there explaining to him of what they're going to ask him to do. And they had 2 models, right? They're this big. And the production manager and the chief engineer of Volvo, they're explaining to Jean-Claude what he's going to be doing. That we've got these 2 semis, and you're going to be standing on the 2 outbound mirrors, and those trucks, and he's like, okay, and you're going to do a split, and he's thinking, okay, this isn't, I'm not feeling real comfortable about this. Oh, by the way, they're going in reverse. And by the way, your shoes aren't mounted to anything. You're standing there freeform. And I got to tell you, unless Jean-Claude Van Damme, and he's been around as an actor for years, unless that was just, it was one of his best performances because you could see the shock and awe in his eyes that he was going to be signing up to do this until he actually got out there and drove these vehicles in reverse himself to see how, he said it drives better than a car. You could steer this thing in reverse with his dynamic steering, whatever they had, going in reverse. So then he became more of a believer. But this is the type of thing that really takes it to the next level. And the automotive sector generally uses the logical emotional approach. They're basically selling a very, very high value product where emotions play a very big part of the buying decision, but at the same time, you've got to justify the rationale for that very large ticket purchase, whether it's $30,000 or $300,000 or more. We still need to know why we're buying something more that's just going to emotionally appeal to us. So high-value purchases include facts and technical specifications, and really Volvo does take the prize. They received all kinds of awards for tying the music, Enya's, who knows where the road will lead, just everything for that piece. And I'm surprised, I've never seen it over here in the United States, if it was European or it was some other market, but it's quite an example of the emotional, logical, emotional sandwich. So, another graphic here that tries to bring this home. If you're tied up specifically in how great your product is and how great your features are, at the end of the day, twirl it all you want, but you can't fire it. It's a gun without a trigger. Gun without a trigger. So now, last year, anybody in this room at IDA 2014 in Las Vegas? Who was here? About half the room? Does anybody remember this guy, Bill Rossiter? He actually came up and talked. It turned out he was the second, his speech, his presentation, he had the second highest attendance of 28 workshops at the IDA Expo in Vegas. I got to tell you, I was there. I saw this guy, but until I started to research this little presentation that we're doing here today, I forgot about this. And I remember sitting there, and I'm like, this guy is spot on. He's the CEO of a marketing company called Interrupt, and he spends a lot of his time working in the construction trade. And before I used his information, I gave him a call because I just wanted to get his professional okay to use some of the statistics last year that he shared with everybody at IDA and not just take his stuff and act like it was mine. You don't do that kind of stuff. And he said, no. He said, that's fantastic. I said, because I'm trying to bring this now down to the more granular level, where last year you were more at the high level 30,000 foot view, trying to explain to the industry, another outsider from the industry, why he thought there was gold to be made and profit to be made and increased revenue to be made if we just focused on a couple of pieces of the puzzle that he didn't quite see us doing from an outsider looking in and basically doing research. And I think he did 300 surveys with the industry professionals that go to IDA and came up with these results. So I wanted to just reflect back and show you some of the key takeaways that he told all of us last year. So his talk was rethinking how to outperform your market. What he did is he challenged us to change the way we think about our market. His survey and his research found that there were 100 million occupied homes with 65% of the garage doors that were older than 12 years. 65 million garage door market opportunity for a single family home. He was pulled back a bit with those statistics, and our industry said, geez, Bill, that's pretty darn aggressive. We feel that it's more of a 2.5 million door per year market. Hey, he was okay with that. I think we'd all be okay with saying that there's 2.5 million doors out there that are ripe, or that the time is right to be able to sell a replacement door, replacement operator, any of the products that we sell here that you're going to see across the hallway at IDA tomorrow and on Saturday. Once again, we all know this. We've heard this for years. The garage door, on average, makes up 40% of the home. And finally, this was the key takeaway, that products sold on emotional connection have higher closing ratios and higher profit margins. So why do we spend so little time dealing with the emotional side of the business? If we can once again leave this room today thinking about we're really good at selling stuff, that if we can just think when we're in front of the customer, when we go back and we put our training programs together for our salespeople, for our management, depending on what size company you're with, I think this takeaway, the timing is right, because when I show you a couple of the next statistics that I researched that take us into 2015 and 2016, we're not talking about 2008, 9, 10, the Great Recession and everything that we kind of worked our way through. We're still at the peak, and the wave is still growing right now. So total home sales, there you can see it. So when Bill talked to us last year, he was basically looking at data that stated he was first quarter of 2014, so his research showed that it was about a $5.4 million market for the home sales, or I should say multiple millions. 5.6 forecast for 2015, and there we are right now. 2016 is even showing aggressive growth into next year. And we all know in the industry, since we're talking residential and we're talking commercial, my side of the business is more on the commercial side, and our business always follows suit after housing starts about a year down the road, a year and a half, new buildings taking place, new operators, new facilities that are supporting all of those new homes in those markets where they're breaking ground and building. So I look at this when I'm planning out sales plans and where our company is going to grow at Miller Edge. This really excites me, because we've battled through the tough time, and now we want to start focusing on what we could do to maximize our time in front of the customer. Just one little snippet right here that was from Kiplinger's. We expect single-family housing starts to expand at a double-digit rate in 2015, on pace to hit 770,000, up from 646,000. So once again, the time is right. The buyers are out there, the market is strong. This is where we need to do things differently. So last year, Bill talked about, he saw us in 3 different buckets, 3 different categories. When we're in front of the customer, his data showed that we spend 61% of our time talking about features and benefits. All of us collectively, that's what we do really, really well. 31% of the time we talk about the services that our company can offer, the fact that we've been in business for 65 or 70 years, the fact that we're either a huge player in the industry or we're more of a family-run business where you get the close personal attention from ownership and everybody that's part of it. Whatever, we take that finite amount of time when we're in front of the customer and we spend almost the whole time spending it on the side that's really not going to help move the needle for us professionally and to grow our business. And only 8% on the emotional reasons to buy. So I stated before that we all have good stuff, whatever it is we're selling. When I was selling sewer and drain cleaning equipment with Spartan Tool, and when I was selling nuts and bolts and Hilti tools, there was always somebody else out there that was selling a comparable product that was either cheaper or the products worked in the products that I was selling. there's always a way to get around. Everybody has good stuff. But if you stay on the rational side of the decision tree and you forget about the emotional side, once again, that's where the action happens. So, listen, I don't want to let anybody here when you leave the room today, or if you're sitting there saying, you know, this guy's blowing smoke, what's he talking about? Sales is a process. Sales, like in any other profession, there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end, there's a close, there's follow-up. It's just like if you're going to write a book, just like if you're going to write a report. You've got to finish the whole thing. You've got to carry it through. If you're a project manager, you've got the beginning, the various stages in between, all the way through the end. Sales is the only profession that I've seen, the only activity, that sometimes the conclusion never happens. You do all the upfront work, the research, you do everything that you're supposed to do, but then the finality, the report, the project that comes to a completion, the new product that's to be launched in sales just never happens. We have a lot of starts and stops in sales. So if we could figure out, and if you always think about sales as a process with all of the individual steps, with at the end of the day, your job is to get to the close, to get the customer to buy. All of these different things up here on this Word file, buying, understanding, communication, consultative, so many different programs that have been out there by the spin doctors and the companies that are selling us new ways to sell. If you really get down to it and you get granular and you look at it, most of the techniques that are being talked about today in one way, shape, or another have been talked about since I started in the business back in 1980. It just with a different twist and with social media to help guide that along. So I said right here, what now? I don't want you to think that everything is all about emotion. We know that there is a real place and a value and a need to sell on features and benefits, and sometimes the emotion is just not going to come into it. So I don't want you to think that you're going to leave here thinking that emotions are the only way to close the gap. They're not. So I wanted to show you right here that the time to focus on the emotions of selling aren't the only way to do this job. So I just came up with a couple of bullet points up here for us to think about. In our industry, a lot of times we have so many different component parts that can go into what that sale should look like. Just a very simple thing, bundling, right? Think about bundling your services together to give your customer less overall options to decide on so they don't get confused. Try to bundle your services and your options in a way that makes sense for the different type of buyer that you're going to be speaking to. Whether it's a high value, somebody that wants the top of the line, somebody that just wants to get the job done at the bottom, or somebody that's got a little bit of a mix in between. Don't forget this, people will pay for results. They will truly pay a premium price if you could show them that your product and what it offers, and then coupling that with how it makes them feel if they make that purchase. You don't have to always think that we're in such a competitive market. One of the things that I've heard since I started in this industry was we've never seen an industry that is so price sensitive and so price conscious. Everything is, you're raising your prices? How dare you? You can't do that. You need to keep your prices down here. I think we got to look, at least for those of us that are in this room and listening to this presentation, to break out of that, to get and start thinking more in how I can close business and how it's going to help me. So people will pay for results and convenience. Also, this is something as we get closer to the conclusion. Don't forget that people will fight harder to prevent losing a dollar than earning a dollar. They have to think about what they have to gain and what they have to lose. And so many times we're talking to customers about the beauty of this door and what this will do that we forget about, what if they don't purchase this product? We're in the safety business at Miller Edge, obviously. We're always looking at what do you have to lose if you don't properly protect that door or that gate? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't enhance the appearance, does it? A safety edge or a photo eye? It's not an appearance generator. So we've got to look at what is the cost if you don't do that. And then, listen, there's always going to be people that don't like what you do. Apple has haters. Does everybody in this room love Apple? Anybody hate Apple? It's like, I just don't get it. There has to be, right? Somebody, there might not be a hater. There you go. Super. Overhead door. Who are you? Hey, Brian. Glad you're here. Yes, believe me, I used to be an Apple hater too until I started using them. Now I'm like this. I'm in love with Apple. I don't know what it is. It's their mystique. But they sure aren't selling on price. They don't sell on price. But it's not bad to have haters. If you have haters, that means people are talking about you. Have you ever driven down the road? And I'll tell you a little story of the industry that I came from, the sewer and drain cleaning industry. I used to go to industry events like this, where it was all pumper trucks and sewer and drain cleaning equipment, what they call it the gray water side of the business, right? Everybody that was dealing with the dirty, smelly sewage side of the business. But there's a lot of money in that business because a lot of people want to do it, and you can earn a really good buck at doing it. But the thing that would always drive the industry crazy is if you're ever, I live out near Philadelphia, and there's a service provider that has grown by leaps and bounds called Horizon Services. Horizon Services does sewer and drain cleaning, plumbing work, HVAC, electrical. They put all of their services under one umbrella. And their claim to fame is all over I-95 and up and down the interstates going down to Delaware, up to Philadelphia. They used to have these billboards that would say, we will clean or clear any line for $99. Used to drive the industry crazy because they knew that was somewhat of a just get me into your home and then I'm going to start trying to build additional services. So the industry would love to talk about, how can Horizon do this? Oh my God, they're giving us a bad name. They weren't doing anything unethical, illegal, bait and switch, none of that. They would come in and do exactly what that billboard said. For $99, we will open up that drain. They would send a sewer snake down there with a cutter on the end. They would punch a hole through that clog, whether it was roots or garbage or whatever it found its way in there. And then they would say, well, we opened up your drain line. But you know what? For an extra $250, I could run my camera down there and show you exactly what's wrong. And oh, by the way, now that I'm here, and now you can see the video, hey, for $7,500, I could pull a new sewer and drain line right through without disturbing your driveway, without disturbing your lawn, and I could be out of here. As a matter of fact, we've got everything on the truck right now. We could do it today. Before your husband comes home tonight, you will have a clean drain. You don't have to worry about this ever happening again. We're going to put this wonderful, and they won't even know we're here. Industry haters thought that was terrible. All they were doing was their job. They had a qualified buyer, and they said, I'm going to complete the sale to the best of my ability. And if that meant all I'm going to get out of it is punching the hole through the line for $99, they left. But the rest of them, there was a great percentage that said, absolutely, this thing's been clogging up on us every year. What's it going to take? We've got to start thinking, at least from what I've observed, in some of those similar type of manners. There's always going to be a little bit of mystery to sales. It's not bad. Every industry out there has somewhat of a mystery to it. Mystery does not mean snarkiness or underhandedness. It just means if you know what you're doing and you do it professionally and correctly, customers are willing to buy off of you and not move on. So I told you before there was going to be something that I was going to put up here, and I wanted to get the overall feeling or the impact from the room right here. So here's an emotional safety awareness message. So you can see this young lad right here standing in front of a gate. He's holding his arm. And the appeal is, you can prevent accidents like this. Be sure all of your gate hazard areas are protected. I'm counting on you. How does that resonate with you? What do you think? This is an emotional appeal. Anybody? Keep your kids safe. Right? Would that appeal to you if you were going to purchase a large mechanical structure or fence or something that's operated by a pretty hefty operator you want to do everything you can to protect your child? Anybody else? Does this strike you as being underhanded? Yes? Right. So think about that this is an emotional message. Can this help to grow your sales revenue by triggering emotions in the logic sandwich? Because we got to think back as we start getting closer to the end of the session. Remember, it's the logic sandwich that we're all talking about. We've seen some pretty slick little commercials by huge corporations that have advertising budgets in the multiple millions to put some of these things on that most of us in this room don't have the ability to do and have that kind of a production value and get it out to the world and have it show up on YouTube and get 77 million hits. But you got to think about how this resonates in your own world, whatever that is. If you're a single family-owned operation or you've got multiple locations throughout the United States, North America, or throughout the world, how can you appeal to the emotional side of the business instead of just, as an example, pointing out that this could use a couple of photo eyes and maybe a safety edge? So this will help, in, at least from what I'm looking at, is a way to somewhat pull it down and get out of the weeds of the technical side of the business and start talking more from the humanity of some of the products that we use and we manufacture in the industry. If it's not done correctly, there are some unsafe situations that can cause people to get hurt or to even be killed. So this is something that I wanted to bring to your attention. You're going to start to see more of this type of advertising and campaigning, at least in my estimation. If I look out there into the future, this is the kind of thing that you're going to start to see help drive sales with that market that's continuing to grow through 2016. So coming back once again to the logic sandwich, there's three common pitfalls that you have to be aware of, and I talked a little bit about this early on in the presentation. Not getting lost in logic, the old slippery salesman, and also forgetting to give them a hug. So with lost in logic, if you're too logical too soon, people are going to be actively be put off. Remember, you want to try to build some emotional connection, whatever that is, before you deep dive into the product specifications of whatever it is you're selling. Think about when we started this, the little role play with the plastic cup. Can you think a little bit back, if you reflect on how many of us in this room use the features and benefits as a way to go right into what this cup would do? Think about how you could have got some interest and generated some excitement, speaking to some way that it would be more of an emotional connection to that little throwaway plastic cup instead of talking about the features and benefits. Can anybody think about that plastic cup right now and what you would say differently to try to make the emotional connection or to identify emotional connection right out of the gate before you deep dived into the product's features and benefits? Anybody? Yes? What is your favorite beverage? Mine is tequila, Patron Silver, sometimes Añejo, but it could be. No, it's just water. But you're right. That's starting into the emotional connection. So where would you take it then? And by the way, your name is? Hey, John. What would you then say after that? What is your favorite beverage? What would your next question be after they told you what their favorite beverage was? Can you picture your beverage of choice in this cup right now? That's outstanding. That's really great. That's exactly the level that you want to start thinking about. Picturing your eyes. My eyes probably went up to the left. I reflected back. Yes, if I didn't have a cup and I had my Patron Silver bottle sitting right there and I didn't have this handy-dandy plastic cup, what would I do? I guess I'd have to drink it out of the bottle, which isn't to say that I've never done that, but the cup is a better way to go. So yes, so that's what you want to make sure. Don't get lost in logic too soon because people will be put off. And features-based selling assumes that the buyer will base their decision to purchase on features alone. And I think that's where we're trying to say that's not necessarily so. So what is the slippery salesman all about? Okay, the buyer who switched to the logic mode is going to now be irritated by you if you're still in the emotional side of the business. And you're thinking about, well, this guy Neski from Miller Edge was talking about this whole emotional thing, so I'm going to just go right into the emotions. Well, as soon as the customer switches, you can't control that. The customer's going to kind of come in and out of these emotional and logical sides and think about us the same way we buy and make purchases. You've got to think about, have you identified that they've slipped into the next mode? Because if you keep appealing on an emotional side, as this little example, hey, is this door resilient? Boy, you're going to want everyone to see that door. Okay, glad to hear that. But at the end of the day, you should be listening for cues to understand when these processes have taken place. And then one of the biggest caveats to remember, don't forget to give them a hug. When they've made that decision that you've helped them make, let them feel good about that decision. Reflect back. When you see the role play up here between David and Julie in a couple of minutes, hopefully some of the things that we've talked about in their staged presentation will let you see the cycle that we've moved through and try to connect the dots on a lot of theory right now and somehow try to put into a more actual presentation. But recognize the switch and validate your customers that they've made a good decision. So it's all about what to say and when to say it. Once again, if you get lost in logic, you're going to be trying to convince people to find out more with your dazzling logic that goes unnoticed. Be aware of that. The slippery sales side of the business, you'll start to seem evasive. If your customer is looking to have, if they've switched to logic, they're going to think that you're trying to be slippery. That's why, believe me, this is about my profession. The last thing in the world I want you to see any of us in sales as is slippery salesmen. But how is your customer perceiving you? They're thinking you're avoiding the question. And they then sense that you're a slippery salesperson. And no hug at the end, you spoil the moment by continuing to rationalize when all the customer wants to do is feel good about the decision they've made. So right here, just one final takeaway right here, that if you're missing the logical side, or you're missing the emotional side at the beginning, and you're talking about the product, and then you bring in the logic at the end, you're going to be missing out on some profitable business. I wish we had the time with another session to really go deeper into how you could then carry this to the next level. Once again, this was more of just a general think about it, a little granular, but I think it needs to go to the next step again. So right now, I am going to zip it, and I'm going to bring David Makepeace and Julie Miller up here to do a little, try to tie this all together with a little role play. Thank you, David. Thank you.
So this role play, I hope everyone can hear me okay. I'm not mic'd up. This role play is a real brief introduction to the points that Keith made in the presentation. Just to kind of set it up for you guys, I'm going to play the role of a dealer coming into a facility, and Julie's going to play a facility manager that's kind of calling me in. Hi, Julie. Thanks for calling me in today. You said on the phone that you needed to replace some of the safety devices on your facility doors.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by. I think we're gonna need fencing edges for our loading down doors.
Okay, no problem. Is there a specific reason why you're thinking of sensing it?
Well, over the last few months, we've had some issues with the doors, and to be honest with you, it's causing some kind of problem.
Okay, what kind of problems are we talking about?
Well, about 3-4 months back, one of our truck drivers actually backed right through one of the doors. We had the door put in originally, and we just had photo lines installed, 6 inches off the ground. We didn't think about fencing edges, but when the door came down, the beam wasn't broken because the truck height, and the drivers didn't see it. Basically, we ended up replacing the whole door. And we had other issues too, with the eyes being hit and out of alignment. And when it happened, I just didn't have time to think about adding extra safety because I was so busy with other projects.
Okay, I can understand that. You know, I can't imagine how much of a pain that must have been to deal with. And how did it affect the operation? I'm sure it was a nightmare, right?
Yeah, it caused me major problems with dealing with the door being out of service. Most of our deliveries come through this door to the building warehouse, and I feel like I spend half my time dealing with the problem when I should be doing other things. And on top of that, I have an ozone inspector coming in next month, and to be honest, I'm worried we're not up to date on safety.
Okay. Julie, I'm sorry to hear this has been such an issue for you. You'll be happy to know that we definitely have a solution to your problems here. I'm going to actually recommend this Sensing Air Direct View. It's a great product. It's got a weather seal and a sensing edge built in, which means you get the benefits of both in a single solution. The weather seal portion actually wraps prolongs the life of the edge, creates a perfect sill on your door, which would be fantastic for you. That's going to catch any objects that are in the way, so for example, that truck incident that you had, you don't have to worry about that. I'm also going to suggest a new rugged industrial photo eye. The casing is a great flexible material, so feel free to kind of feel that and take a look at it. It also has an eye built into it, which is encased in a water-resistant epoxy. So that means the eyes can survive impact, heavy use. So not only is that going to be a complete solution to protect your stores and employees, it's going to give you peace of mind, knowing that you can relax and focus on your other daily responsibilities. On top of that, I'll make sure that everything meets your standards so that your inspection goes smoothly. How does that sound?
That sounds great, but I'm worried about time. What's the turnaround going to be?
Well, I'm confident we can get the fine installation done before the OSHA inspection. In the meantime, I actually carry sensing edges on the truck that can be installed today if that would make you feel more at ease. They're actually a special type of material which can be cut and installed on site.
Cool. There's a few doors that I'm concerned about, so if you could put eggs on those today and order the rest for installation, that would be perfect.
Sure, that won't be a problem. Just imagine how great it's going to feel when you have to spend all that time worrying about these kind of issues. You can focus on your usual work. With the OSHA inspection coming up, we'll make sure that you pass with flying colors, and that'll be another load off your back, I'm sure.
Great. So what's the cost estimate? Can I expect a quote today?
I have a cost here on the sensing edges being installed today. The other work, I'll give you a rough estimate and have our office draw up a formal quote. The solutions I've recommended are a little more expensive than the standard option. However, what I want you to understand is that it's giving you a real peace of mind, and I promise you this is worth every single penny. I've made these kind of upgrades for a lot of other customers and can tell you what a difference it has made for them. Just imagine having less concerns regarding production downtime or damaged materials, and of course, you haven't got to worry about any other those employee injuries, those kind of incidents. Can I get started on this for you today so you're ready for inspection?
Yeah, thank you so much for helping me out. I'd rather send me formal quotes anytime.
Absolutely. I know this will make you sleep better tonight knowing it's a safe installation.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Hopefully that gives you guys an idea of
Excellent. I do want to say this is not an advertisement for Miller Edge. It's just that this is with the products that we knew best, so just wanted to make you aware of that. So hopefully you saw how this whole thing pulled itself together, and you can start thinking about in the future how you can use the emotional and the logic sandwich to your benefit. It's been a pleasure to stand up here and speak to you folks. I hope it was rewarding for you and worthwhile. If there's any questions that you have, we're going to be over in the Miller Edge booth for the next couple of days. If I see any of you, stop in, say hi, and feel free if you want to drop me a line. I'd be happy to share the presentation or anything that you would like. At this point, I think we're out of time, so we're 5 minutes past, and I think the next group's going to come in shortly. So once again, sorry we didn't have a chance for questions and answers, but thanks again for attending. Have a great day.